Hey guys, this is Justin. Hello and welcome to another video. We've got a fun one today because we're diving deep into Star Wars Legends to discuss one of my favorite characters, Anakin Solo. And no, not Anakin Skywalker, not Ben Solo, Anakin Solo, the youngest child of Han and Leia in Star Wars Legends. I wanted to address this because of a question we got from Buckwild, who says, how much latent force potential did Anakin Solo have? Just a reminder, by the way, submit your own questions. Include the hashtag AskAk so I can find them. So Anakin Solo's a really interesting character. He's less well known than his siblings, and I think that's for several reasons. For one, spoiler alert, Anakin dies halfway through the new Jedi Order. He's just 16, so we don't see a lot of his potential. Although certainly at the time of his death, as we'll get to, he arguably nonetheless reaches his ultimate power. Really though, Anakin Solo dying in Star by Star means he's not in the rest of the new Jedi Order, obviously, with Jaina and Jacen squarely becoming to arguably the two most important characters in the series. Jaina and Jacen then figure very prominently in the subsequent novels and series, including The Dark Nest Crisis, Legacy of the Force, where Jaina ends up killing Jacen, and for Jaina, Fate of the Jedi. A lot of people went into the new Jedi Order less familiar with Anakin as well. Jaina and Jacen as the twins got more attention, probably because they were born in the Thrawn trilogy, whereas Anakin was introduced in Dark Empire. Jaina and Jacen are also older, so with the exception of the Corellian trilogy, they're more prominent in the early Bantam works, and the Young Jedi Knights series was how a lot of young readers, including myself, were first introduced to Star Wars Legends, and that features Jaina, Jacen, and their friends training at Luke's Jedi Praxium, whereas Anakin had his own series, Junior Jedi Knights, which was less popular and geared towards even younger readers. So really, Jaina and Jacen are sort of the face of the next generation of Jedi within Luke's Jedi Order, with Anakin being a little bit, but not much younger. However, pretty much immediately, Anakin was the dramatic heart of the early new Jedi Order. He fights alongside his brother and sister in the early battles of the war. He's also not only present for the death of Chewbacca, but Chewbacca dies helping to save his life. Han ends up going into a deep depression, blaming Anakin and fracturing the relationship between the two, which is made more tragic by Anakin's subsequent death, especially because he'd begun to fall in love with the character Tahiri, who in her own way is also a very tragic character. The new Jedi Order sees basically all of the Solo children grow up and take the next steps in their journey. For Jacen, it's a philosophical one. For Jaina, she's trying to figure out her role in the galaxy. For Anakin, it's different. Anakin Solo, especially after his death, is almost always described as the single most latently powerful Force user of, if not just the Skywalker family, perhaps all time. I've got to give credit to the Comic Vine article created by The Vivus, which did a great job of collecting a bunch of these quotes. I recently reread through the new Jedi Order for my podcast, Tapcaf Transmission, so I had a lot of them floating around, but 19 books long. Anakin, however, is much like his namesake in that pretty much all of his Force abilities come natural and without work. He's unlike Jacen, who is inward and kind of unsure. Anakin just has it, and that's also part of the reason why he was killed. Anakin was definitely being set up as the next chosen one, and it's long been said that it was George Lucas who said he had to go, and having two characters named Anakin filling sort of the same role at the same time the prequels were releasing, I get where he was coming from. Anyway, I was very happy to crack the new Essential Guide to Characters before starting to record this video because it makes it pretty easy. It says outright, Anakin's connection to the Force seemed primal, much more profound than either of his siblings. This talent was recognized by his enemies. His parents and his uncle Luke recognized Anakin's status as a nexus of the Force. Keep in mind, we're talking about Jacen Solo. Jacen Solo, who becomes one with the Force to essentially end the Yuuzhan Vong War. Anakin Solo has a more primal, profound connection to the Force than Jacen or Jaina, Sword of the Jedi. That Comic Vine Respect thread I referenced earlier also had a really nice quote from the Star Wars Encyclopedia I was not aware of. Born 6 years after the death of his grandfather, Anakin Solo was the youngest of Han Solo and Princess Leia Organa Solo's 3 children, and the strongest in the Force. You could argue that the Solo children were on a different class than the elder Anakin or Luke, and I'd be open to hearing that, but I think that's sort of of like over video gaming the way the Force works in Star Wars. I think it picks people. I think it's about destiny, and I see Anakin Solo as on that same level. And that's really how the New Jedi Order talks about him as well after his death. And what Anakin could have become is a very, very interesting question. It's one Jason often thinks about in the New Jedi Order after his brother's death. Even before that, in Edge of Victory Rebirth, Corran Horn says, "You may not know it, but of all the younger Jedi and a lot of the older ones look up to you. The buzz is you're the next Luke Skywalker, at the very least." Anyway, his status among Jedi of his generation, at least, is certainly solidified in Star by Star. Anakin Solo is picked to lead the strike to Myrkr. For those who haven't read the novel, the Yuuzhan Vong develop a terrible biot known as a Voxin. It's a mix between a Vornsker and a Zin. I've done an entire video on it. Two animals basically bred together to make a creature which is incredibly dangerous and which kills Jedi unlike any other, in really terrible ways as well. The beginning of Star by Star features the death of Ali Marar's sister. It's awful. Anyway, the Jedi organize a mission to the world ship Banu Ross, and Anakin Solo is chosen as team leader. This is alongside his brother and sister, many other talented Jedi. And without going into too much detail, it ends essentially with Anakin Solo sacrificing himself so the other members of his team can escape, and so that he can kill the stored DNA of the Voxin and their queen. Anakin already had a special role within the Yuuzhan Vong War. He had a sort of Vong sense. The Yuuzhan Vong ordinarily couldn't be sensed through the Force. Anakin developed a means to do so with the help of a lambent Vong crystal. It's hard to explain. But on Banu Ross, being overwhelmed by hordes of Yuuzhan Vong, Anakin does the incredible. As he's vomiting blood, literally using the Force to lift his body and keep going on after being stabbed countless times, he faces off against 40 Yuuzhan Vong warriors. Anakin opened himself to the Force completely, drawing it into himself through the power of his emotions, not through his anger or fear like a dark Jedi, but through his love for his family and his fellow Jedi Knight. The Force poured in from all sides, filling him with a swirling maelstrom of power and purpose, saturating him and devouring him. There was nothing to be frightened of, no purpose to grieve. He could feel it flowing into himself and himself flowing into it. Anakin was the Force, and the Force was Anakin. He rose, his body emitting a faint aura of light, the glow of his cells burning out, and the air crackled around him. His injuries no longer pained him. He was acutely aware of everything, even the Yuuzhan Vong. Their presence was as distinct to him as that of his own companions. Anakin ends up killing most of the Vong through pure Force energy, to the point where his body essentially dies and becomes an avatar for the Force swirling through him. His aura was burning so brightly that he cast shadows behind his foes. He batted the blade left to right, overpowering 2 blocks to open 2 throats, then sent another warrior tumbling with a hook kick to the head. Anakin's death is described as him melting back into the Force, and he succeeds in not only saving his friends and family, but destroying the Voxin and the samples of DNA, essentially ending the threat. So yes, Anakin had incredible potential. You can argue specifics. Oh, Jason had more, Luke had more, Anakin Skywalker had more. To me, he is the Jedi who's the biggest what if, and I truly believe he could have been the most powerful of all time. But those are just my thoughts. I look forward to reading yours and more down below. Of course, if you've got future questions, let me know. But until then, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.